You know, they call you an asshole.
Been called a bitch 1,000 times.
A knocked up whore. Get the F out of this effing room, effing N-word. I've been bitten, choked, punched in the mouth. I had a guy try to kick me in my stomach while I was pregnant.
Push me past my limit, past my capacity of being able to multitask. Something's going to get missed. And when I say something, I'm talking about your mother, I'm talking about your father, I'm talking about your husband and your wife.
Maybe at breaking point, but their bosses have warned them not to speak out. They are anything.
So we're breaking news at 6 as thousands of Providence doctors, nurses, and other workers walk off the job. It is
From policymakers to frontline practitioners, we dive deep into the diverse worlds that make up our evolving medical landscape. Join us as we uncover success stories. Whether you're a seasoned professional or simply curious about the future of health, this is your gateway to the uncharted territories of modern medicine. Anas Abidrabbu is your host of Uncharted Narratives podcast, Sirdiyat. Welcome to Uncharted Narratives. Today we're thrilled to introduce Jennifer Johnson, known to many as Nurse Jen. Jennifer is a seasoned emergency room nurse with over 16 years of experience. She's now an author, advocate, and innovator in nursing education. Her debut novel, Nursing Intuition, offers a unique blend of intuition and nursing, drawing from her intense experiences in emergency medicine. As the founder of RX for Growth, Jennifer is dedicated to empowering nurses through guided journals, workshops, and mentorship programs. She's also a guest lecturer at Brock University, where she shares real-world nursing insights with aspiring healthcare professionals. She's a vocal advocate for healthcare workers' mental health, frequently speaking at conferences and workshops. Her essays on the emotional challenges of nursing and the importance of resilience have been featured in prominent medical journals. Get ready for an inspiring conversation that bridges the gap between intuition and evidence-based practice in healthcare. Welcome back to Uncharted Narratives. If you're just joining us, we're continuing our second-part conversation. Now let's continue our journey and uncover more remarkable stories and insights.
I mean, I think I'll be still at the bedside probably until I'm 65, I think, as long as my back holds out. But yeah, I love it. And to be able to watch new hires grow and start speaking up for themselves and start being strong and advocating for their patients. It's like watching your own kids grow up. It's absolutely fantastic. So I can't see walking away from that. Can I see teaching? For sure. That would be awesome. I can't see teaching the full class. I mean, I'm happy to pop in and teach a 3-hour session and just talk about these are the realities. And you guys are already more than well aware of what's going on. I see writing. I love writing. It's one of those things where I'm so busy right now with the book coming out and educational opportunities popping up and going to conferences. I literally had to write myself a note to be like, try and carve out time for writing. Because that's the best part, is sitting down and sharing the stories. And if somebody can avoid the mistakes that I made, I'm happy. That's a life well lived.
All of us will be happy. All of us will be happy to share the knowledge and exchange the experience also. When you mention how you see your future, that's fascinating, honestly speaking. For me, 3 years, it was crystal clear and enough for me with the nursing. I am proud I am a nurse, but I see myself supporting the nursing in a different way. The interesting things with you, both of us, we connected in different group and community supporting different initiative and a project. So, for example, we were connected with the community. We try to find a change in our education system and update the curriculum. In the same time, we work on other community or group still. We have an initiative to improve the professional development and find the way to enhance the mental health and also increase the burnout severity for the staff. We cannot eliminate it, but at least to educate them how to handle it and also give them awareness. So mental health have a lot of things you are doing, and this is the main driver. For sure, it is important, but why you give this topics more depth and focus with your involvement with the community and also with the healthcare sectors.
Yeah, because, people love to throw around words like resilience. But who's teaching resilience? Nobody's teaching resilience. Everyone's like, you need to be more resilient. Well, what does that even look like? First and foremost, like, what does it look like to be resilient? How do I become resilient?
There
and
is
how
some buzzword. To be honest, it's very
buzzwords
hard.
for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's hard to kind of like, and again, being very nurse based, we want to put things into focus. Like, please make this applicable to me. So for me, the toughest parts about nursing that I found were the grief. Like, how do you grieve somebody that you've only known for 30 minutes? How do you deal with something that then affects your life for 17 years? I'm still carrying that patient with me. I'm still carrying that family. Is it as, forceful as it was originally? No. If you get me really talking about it, can I cry? Absolutely. It's still there because it was such a profound experience. So, but we never talked about grief ever. We barely talked about death and dying in class, let alone our own grief. So it's like, okay, well, let's start talking about the topics that we're not talking about, because you can throw around resilience a million different ways, but you need to give people actual tangible tools to be able to go, A, realizing that they're not coping, and then B, okay, how can we start to cope and how can we start to reframe things and work on our own responses to the crazy that we see every single day, because we're seeing people at their absolute worst a lot of the time. So grief was a huge topic. Nurse wellness was also another huge one where, wellness again seems to be another buzzword where people are like, oh, just, go do some self-care. Again, what the hell does that look like? For everybody, it's a little bit different, but, self-care can be enough. Self-care can be getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep if that's what you need. Healthcare, or self-care can be more than just these silly bubble baths. Like, I hate baths. I absolutely hate them. I can't with these people and these, like, just take a bubble bath. Can't do it. Let's talk about, getting enough water. Are you eating when you're on shift? Are you always rushing around and only have time to like eat mobile snacks instead of real meals? So then, you're not getting the nutrients that you need. Are you then not peeing, for 8 hours, 10 hours on shift because it's just too busy? You can't stop, or you feel like you can't stop when in reality, you can carve out 30 seconds to go pee. We all can, pushing our bodies to the limits of exhaustion and sleep deprivation and all these things. That's what leads to burnout. Not listening to ourselves and what our body needs. That's what leads to burnout. And then you you stack on top of that the ridiculous expectations of the job and the emotions that go with the job and all these extra extraneous things that, nobody told us how to handle somebody who's screaming at you. How do you deal with that? Well, the Canadian way, you just say sorry a bunch. The Canadian way, you say sorry because it disarms people. Nobody's expecting for you to say sorry. Nobody. So when somebody's screaming, they're in your face, they're just losing it. You try and stay as calm as you can. You say, like, I'm so sorry. I hear you. I understand that this is frustrating. I can't imagine the pain you're in, the fear that you must be having, the worry that you're having about your loved one, the uncertainty of it all. I can understand that. What I can't understand is your behavior, but I'm sorry for those things that are still way out of my control. But you can say sorry and be truthful and empathetic with it. But these people also have no idea what it's like working on the other side. So treating people with kindness and shutting them down that way sometimes is the most enjoyable thing, because there's nothing better than seeing somebody's face flip after you say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And they go, what? Because and sometimes people are just looking for a fight. They are just looking for somebody else to get back in their face so that they can vent more and potentially hit you and escalate the situation. Saying sorry is the most unorthodox way to just completely tip people off their balance. And once they're off balance, then their brain has a little bit of a reset where you can then, okay, I've got a couple of moments to rationalize with them. and you can go from there. But there's just a lot of things that nursing school didn't teach, probably because they didn't have enough time, because it was hard enough trying to cram in everything that they did.
So it's daunting, difficult, on the edge all the time, sleep, depression, no eat, no be,
Yeah.
abuse, bullying, violence. So what's your main driver to keep all those toxic things happy day to day, and you don't want to get out of from the career? I'm not trying to convince you or anyone to go out, but I try to give the amount of empathy and amount of the things you sacrifice in order to serve others. And this is, to be honest, something underrated and underestimated from other, and maybe even from the leadership within the hospital. They thought they understand what the nurses they have. But in reality, if they do, a lot of the things they will not, if they will not fix what you have, they will not put you in trouble or in situation where they questioning you. So what is your main driver? Money?
No, because I mean, I could do hundreds of things for money, and for probably more money than I'm making right now. I mean, I love it. It's a very complicated relationship. Don't get me wrong. I constantly joke that working the ER is like being in an abusive relationship with the public, and it's hard to leave, because every now and again you do get that win. The thing or the person that you helped, and because you were there, things changed. Because you were there, you caught something and their outcomes improved. Because you were there, you were able to talk to somebody about death and dying when their family wasn't ready to. Because you were there, you feel it in your soul when you have a moment where you know that that's exactly where you were supposed to be that day. And it's one of those feelings that you can't replicate, you can't make it up, you can't fake it. And again, it is not all the time. It is few and far between. But it's those moments that make it all worthwhile. Reaching out to a family who had no idea that their kid was drinking and getting blackout drunk because they were having PTSD flashbacks of a family trauma. And nobody had any idea as to why this was happening. We all just thought that he was getting drunk just to get drunk because he was 16. But because I listened, because I had a gut instinct about there was more to this story, and because that kid said, well, I get drunker than this all the time. And I'm going, drunker than this? Dude, you were blacked out. I could not rouse you. You were out. And so I go, okay, well, what do you mean? For how long has this been going on for? And he goes, 6 months. Okay. And again, before I'm even thinking about what I'm asking, it's, well, what happened 6 months ago? I watched my father die in our kitchen. Pardon? What are you talking about? And, originally I was the hard ass nurse. I was the one who was giving the kid the gears about being drunk and not being super empathetic and just kind of little nurse ratchet, just kind of going in there. And it's not until all this comes out that you go, oh my God, okay. And so then you're kind of backing up the train to go, well, what can I do? How can I help? Does your family know? Well, no, the older brother that's there has no idea. Bring him on in. We're going to tell him. And, in 16 years, I've never once given out my personal phone number. That kid I did. They've never called. They've never texted. But it was one thing that I'm like, you need more support. And, I can do what I can on my end to get you a social care work referral and to get you supports for your family and everything I can do in the ER setting, but you need more. And so if you're having trouble figuring it out, text me, call me, whatever. That was one of those moments that I was like,
so
I needed to be there.
It's a memorable moment for you, right? And yeah, I felt it also from your voice. Why this become a memorable story for you over the 16 months?
I was wrong. I thought he was just...
discover you are wrong?
Well, so I just thought he was a dumb kid being drunk on a Saturday night. I had no other inclination as to what was going on. I thought he was just being a kid. And it wasn't until he said, oh, I've been drunker than this before. Once he finally woke up, that I said, oh, what are you talking about? You've been drunker than before. And how long's it been going on for? He said 6 months. And that's what queued up everything. So I'm like, had I not paid attention, I would have just okay, yeah, you're sober enough to go home. Your brother's here. See ya. But it was stopping for that extra moment and asking the questions. That's what made it memorable.
And here it's the shocking for us as a healthcare professional. How many for us came and they have story behind why they came here, and we don't listen because we don't have time. None from us as a nurse or the physician, they take care for them. We keep saying empathy, but we don't give them the empathy. And every time we put that excuse, we are understaffed and we don't have time and overloaded, but we treat the patient like a number.
Yeah.
And
it's a bit of a meat market, unfortunately.
Yeah. And you can see in that time what's happened in some moment, it's happened by chance. You listened and the whole story has been changed. Until now, you remember that kid. I hope he is not drunk right now.
Here's hoping. Here's hoping. But yeah, it's just one of those that completely blindsided by what was going on. And so how many times have I missed, the true story of why people are coming in? Because again, we were short staffed. I was busy running around like an idiot. I wasn't, 100% on because I was tired from the shift before and the shift before and the shift before. It's hard when you're forced into only doing the bare minimum because that's literally all you have time for.
Your book. What is your book about?
Nursing Intuition, How to Trust Your Gut, Save Your Sanity, and Survive Your Career, is about how to trust your gut.
Speak English with me, barely. Those big
So-
words.
My baby. So it's about trusting your gut. And it's one of those things that you learn the more experienced you are, the more you kind of get feelings about things and patience and symptoms that you're like, things aren't fitting. And it's taking the time to then, A, realize it's going on, that it's happening, that we've all got intuition, and then B, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to advocate for your patient and talk to the doctor or talk to coworkers to be like, hey, I don't know what's going on with this patient. What do you think? And come and check it out, getting a second opinion and going with it. And not only, have I learned that I trust my gut, and it's, again, helped hundreds of times, we all do it. But we just don't talk about it because it seems like a very woo-woo kind of concept that seems a little bit supernatural, that, it's not based in science, but it is there. So I wrote the book, and it started with being a trauma journal about everything that had happened once COVID hit, things that I hadn't dealt with that I just kind of shoved down deep, and it's fine. I'll just push through. I'll keep going. And with COVID, everything came up. So I wrote things down for my kids to be like, if mom wasn't to survive COVID because she was working, how do you explain to a 4 and 5-year-old at the time that I chose to continue to go in? So I started writing down my really good stories. There were a couple of those, but the really bad stories just flew out after that. And I was listening to an online book fair, and one of the books that was being talked about was Intuition at Work. And I'm going, intuition at work? I'm like, I use my intuition all the time at work. And it was just this light bulb that went off about, okay, went back, and sure enough, every single story had some sort of intuition or trusting my gut or going above and beyond. And so, it's August 2020 when I wrote it, and looking at it, I'm like, well, I can't really bring this forward without evidence behind me, because the misinformation and disinformation was just starting to fly around, and it was insane. And so I thought, like, okay, well, let me try to see if there's any science to support this. And not only is there so much science to support intuition in general, there's so much evidence for specifically intuition in nursing. And it's one of these things where it's like, there's all this science, but why aren't we teaching it? And I thought, well, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to be the first one to say it out loud and to be there. And so I'm like, okay, guess it's going to be me. So, kind of, worked it all together for the book, and it's just opened so many doors. So I
So
can't.
do you consider what the right category for your book? Science or
So
spiritual?
it is under holistic medicine, it's under nurse and patient relations, and it's under physician and patient relations. So it's a little bit memoir, it's a little bit science, it's 100% nonfiction. So I know when I was trying to pick a category for it, I was like, where does this even fit? Like it's kind of all over the place, but yeah, like medical memoirs, it fits really well in a medical memoir, but then with an education edge to it.
Who is your audience?
Any nurse. And
Any
even
nurse.
so preferably and probably a little bit more impactful for newer nurses, nursing students. But I mean, anybody could read the book. It's laid out plainly enough that anybody can understand, but the nurses are going to get it.
And where they can find your
So it's on Amazon. So if
Amazon.
you search up Nursing Intuition, How to Trust Your Gut, it should come up.
Okay, sounds good. Amazon Canada, right?
And in Canada, everywhere. The
Yeah.
UK, Australia, all over.
Worldwide. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not expert like you, so I'm not author, so I don't know how to sell a book. So storytelling is something is not an easy to have this skill set. It is more like touching skills, and it is more about find way to deliver a big story in very simple way and give the audience or the reader that feeling to live it and to feel it. So from where you get this skills?
No idea. I just, again, I wasn't writing it for anybody else other than my kids. Like I wasn't writing it with nurses in mind. You know, it was all the stories that we tell each other. You know, we've all got stories where something comes up and it's like, yeah, I had a close catch the other day. And then you have this like little 2-minute story where you've kind of simplified everything. And so that you can quickly tell your colleagues. And again, it's a way for people to learn from one to another. It's probably the greatest way that nurses learn, because I can tell you, hey, this was my experience. This is what I learned. Please don't repeat my mistake. Like, learn from me. And we've all got stories, every single one of us.
So you told your kids your story. What about the second book?
The second book, second book is Nursing Power, How to Break the Stereotypes, and is mainly around, you know, all these stereotypes in nursing that, again, are 100% contributing to burnout. So, you know, the stereotype of you're perfect, you're never going to make a mistake. So when you make a mistake, because we're human, it's life altering, because, you know, how do you get over that? Because we were told in school, like, we can't make mistakes. People's lives are on the line. So when you make a mistake, how do you get over it? How do you, you know, take responsibility for it, work through it, identify ways that maybe this contributed to you making the mistake, and then change things so that nobody ever makes that mistake again. Stereotypes like, you know, you're not a good nurse unless you give everything to everybody else. Putting you first is selfish. You know, saying no to a shift when we're calling you and begging you to come in is selfish. How could you? Oh, but we're so short-staffed. Like, how can you possibly say no to your coworkers? You know what it's like to work short-staffed. Can't you come in? Even for 6 hours? No, I've said no. And getting to the point of not only saying no, but being able to say no without an explanation, right? Because how many times do people call and we're like, oh, no, I'm really sorry. I've got an appointment, or I've got something to do, or yada, yada, yada. You know, you can just say no. No is a full sentence. You know, as much as you, especially the Canadians, we don't like to be rude. It's kind of built in us. It's not being rude to say no. They're offering you something and you're politely saying no, thank you. And that's enough. You know, things like setting boundaries, you know, being very clear with family and friends that I work night shift. You cannot call the house when I'm sleeping. You can't expect me to be up at 12 o'clock when I've worked a night shift the night before. Like, that's insane. And so trying to talk to people who don't do shift work, trying to get it through to them that no, my sleep matters too. Like, I don't call you at midnight and expect you to go out. Like, so why would you call me at my midnight and expect me to go out? That's kind of ridiculous. You know, setting boundaries and prioritizing yourself is probably one of the biggest misnomers with nursing about
So
you're
your
supposed to give
book
it all.
will help the nurses to know how to say no and set the boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's key.
I believe we need that because as a nurses, most of the time we see ourselves as a giver and we compromise a lot of the things.
We compromise
We don't go
everything.
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 Yeah, everything, and it's become a habit later on. You cannot say no for anything. What is not good? It's not good. You have to say no. You have to say no, and you know when to say no and how to say no.
Yeah. And not feel bad about it. Like not beat yourself up for hours because you said no and go back and forth to be like, well, can I go? Can't I go? Like, I don't know. No, you've said no. Move on. On to the
Sorry, not
next.
sorry.
No, sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
So you start with your second book, or
It's done.
it's published already?
It's not published. It's edited and ready to go, but I think it needs more stories. So I again have to carve out time to be able to reach back into my memory to be like, okay, well, what fits? What's a story that's a really great example of me learning and putting myself first and getting and dealing with the flack that you're going to get when you start actually prioritizing yourself.
I need to understand how you work in ER and do all those stuff, and back to home, you have your kids tired,
Yes.
barely breath,
Functioning. Yep.
barely functioning. Okay, and you have that sense of writing and imagination. From where you bring all this power? That would.
I don't know. It's one of these things where if it was a hobby, and again, people kind of shame me for working so much or for having all these things on the go. And so it's like, well, if this was a hobby that I was spending 2, 3, 4 hours a day on because it brought me joy, but it was a hobby, nobody would complain. Nobody would say, oh my God, I can't believe, how do you have time for that? Like, oh my God, nobody would say a word. There are people who crochet and knit and golf for umpteen hours a week. Nobody shames them. Nobody shames them. But entrepreneurs, now that you've brought money into the equation, now all of a sudden, oh my God, you work so much. Well, yeah, but I also then get to meet fantastic people. I get to talk with really cool people and be in rooms that I never once thought I'd ever be in. I get to travel and I get to go to conferences and I get to, share what's on my heart to help support other people. And so we can if you feel better with calling it a hobby, let's call it a hobby. But, once you bring money into the equation, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't believe you're so busy. I used to cross stitch before I was an entrepreneur and all this. I would cross stitch for hours a day. I would do sometimes if I had a day off, I would cross stitch for 6-8 hours. And it was so much fun. It kept me busy. I got to put on something in the background and just watch it and zone out and just cross stitch. And everyone's like, oh, it's so pretty. Oh, great. What a great hobby. Yeah. You don't understand how much time I spent on it. So then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's fine because you have no idea how much time I spent on it.
Do you agree with me now more than ever? We need, even if you don't have writing as a hobby, you need to learn how to write a story and write your book.
Yeah. Because we all have stories. You can't work nursing for any length of time and not come away with stories. TikTok tells us so because, these skits that people are putting out are just so funny. And you wouldn't believe some of the stuff that I've seen in my life and my career. And I can't imagine what somebody else's career, what they've seen and done in their career. I think it's so interesting. So again, when other nurse authors come out, I pick up their books so fast because I want to know, what have you seen? What can I learn from you? What can how can this improve my practice? And then have me entertained at the same time. But everybody can write. If you just write down your 2-minute story that you would tell a coworker, write it down and then walk away. Come back to it and then expand later. Yeah, no, you can expand, right? So a lot of my stories, they all started out as just the 2-minute little blurby blurbs that I tell people on a daily basis. But I went back into them to then expand and like, okay, so how did you feel? And what did you sense? And how were other people acting? And like, just describe. Because once you actually go back and then you can, in your own memory, you're like, oh, I remember, this person kind of had a bead of sweat on their forehead and somebody else was really jittery and somebody else was kind of talking to themselves a little bit, going through, procedure and then how to do things. Those little pieces, we lose them because we need to condense down the story because we don't have a ton of time. So once you go back into the story, I mean, it's therapy, if nothing else, to go back in and really sit in that moment and close your eyes and visualize being back in whatever place that you were and go, oh, I remember the dinging. And I remember that it was super cold that day. And I remember that it was snowing. And, I remember that I wasn't even supposed to be there. I'd been called in and I was supposed to have actually left. But the patch phone rang as I was supposed to be leaving and we got this report. And, I asked, my charge nurse told me what it was, but she's like, oh no, you go home. I said, well, I'm the one with the pediatric experience. So do you want me to stay? And that's how that all folded out. It's putting yourself back in and really sitting in it. It's hard. And a lot of these stories, I had to go in several times because I couldn't go anymore. I was bawling. I was so upset. I had to pull out. I couldn't sit in that moment again because this time I had the option to pull out. So you can go back in and out. Like, that's fine. You can stop at any point. But our stories, especially the nursing stories, like, we need to tell them. We need to.
Mentioned during our discussion, the media is not presenting the nursing in the right way. We have a bad presentation. Now,
Or no presentation.
I agree, and this is very bad. But how as a nurse now, I need to think about all those technology, all upgrade skills, educate myself, write my story, and also promote myself and position myself in the right place with the place or with the environment. It's now, especially if we consider LinkedIn, okay? Forget the Gen Z and TikTok. If we looking for LinkedIn, highly competitive, okay? And when I mention personal brand, I mention to be a human, genuine, authentic. How I will do all of those together?
Just be you. Don't force it. The number one best advice that I ever got from anybody was just be you. And I'm messy. I'm all over the place. I'm ADHD. I'm a workaholic. I'm all these things and I'm upfront about it. If I'm late to a meeting, I apologize. I'm so sorry. I was doing XYZ, but then learning from it, right? So, okay, so I was late to a meeting because time zone change or something else. Okay, now I need to remember that I need to double check the time zone. And, sometimes Podmatch especially it's been great for matching me with like podcasters to podcast guests. And it's usually really quite good at managing the time zones. But ever since we went back to Eastern, it's been messing up left, right, and center. So I had one or two that the time zone was off and then I missed it and then I feel bad. So, now I triple check and you just have to learn. But yeah, just put yourself out there because really we're all looking to learn. We're all experts in one thing or another. We're all looking to support one another and be there. And really, if your hope is just to support nurses, oh my God, have I got the group for you? Like, there's so many of us that are out there and it's just a matter of interconnecting.
We keep hearing nursing for nurses and we need to support each other and also to have that sense of growth and the community. And I hear a lot from you. You are advocate for a community. But in reality, do we have that on the ground?
It's getting there. There's a lot of people doing their own things and it's hard to pick one. So why not just be a part of them all? So Nurses Don't Clock Out is a great one. The Nifty community, so NFTY, Nurses Feed Their Young community is fantastic. Cayenne is fantastic. There's just so many that once you kind of get into nursing on LinkedIn, the groups are starting to come up.
Those initiatives, they are isolated. They are worked by
Yes.
themselves, even with the can, even
Yes.
with the can.
Yeah.
And you are
We're getting there.
you are
There's-
very silly. You learn this from your book. Okay, I take it. Thank you. But yeah, there is no real collaboration because all of them, they are good initiative. But you cannot, as you mentioned, you cannot focus on one initiative and leave the other. You need to collaborate all of together. Do you see?
I'm hoping that one point somebody will kind of bring them all together. But for right now, yeah, we're all kind of silos, but we're really all trying to do the same thing. So with every passing day, we're all getting just a little bit closer, right? And so, of course, with nursing, there's a lot of personalities. So there will come a time where it's like, well, do you want to be a part of mine or am I being a part of yours? Like, are we doing it together? What's happening? You know, is it going to be a takeover, you know, to kind of merge everything together? Is there ever going to be one big thing? Probably not, because there's just so many nurses. There's 4 million in the US alone. So, you
But
know,
we have a lot of issues.
so many
still,
issues.
Yeah, if 4 million, if everyone take one issue, still we have
I know.
backlog.
So
Need-
many
yeah,
issues.
Yeah,
Which is why, you know, find what works for you. You know, maybe the Nifty community works. Maybe nurses don't clock out. Maybe Kyan, like, or all of them. Why not? You know, find your people. And really, I'm just flying by the seat of my pants. Like, I'm just day to day. I have no idea what the day is going to bring. And I'm just being open to whomever comes into my universe and go from there. It's half the work. Because if you're looking specifically for one person who only does this thing and you're probably not going to find them, because you're probably missing out on 5, 6, 10 other people who do something very, very similar, but not 100% what you're looking for. So why not just go for it?
From your progress, how we are progress? From your perspective, from your point of view, how we are progressing with the nursing community?
Every day there's another person saying, oh my God, we need a community every single day. So with every passing day, there's one more person either starting a group or joining a group or helping to be an admin or starting something in their own home hospitals. We're getting there. You know, we're finally coming out of burnout and we're finally taking care of ourselves and we're getting to the point of, okay, I'm okay. I'm not great, but I'm okay. I am now realizing that I need to help because again, that's our whole persona. So I need to help others. And there's every single day another nurse turns to, okay, I got to help. And there are many people who are, I was like, why was the door open? There's many people starting things and joining groups and all this other stuff. I'm of the mindset that I'm just gonna float around. I'm gonna be the joiner. I'm happily the joiner because I do have a lot going on. So I can't possibly manage another group or another LinkedIn live or anything like this. So I'm always happy to be on and to support others and to connect other people. But that's my role. And I'm cool with that role. I don't necessarily need to do anything more. The problem will probably be when several very large groups either want to come together or there's fighting within the group and people want to split off. So we will see about that. You want a hug. How long left till you're done your podcast? I want a hug. My daughter says. Come here. Come here.
Hug there.
Hi. Come here. No. Oof. Hi. I love you. What you doing? I'm bored. You're bored. Hi, bored. I'm yeah. And that's super cool. Well, come here then. Come here. Love you. Watch your head. Don't hit the desk. Now we're under the desk.
Done, almost done. So if we see the nursing movement, if we see the nursing movement around us and everywhere, everyone take initiative and try to promote it. Thankfully, try to advocate about very important topics. I don't know how to ask this a question, to be honest. This is because now the trend, the social media to look like I am influencer, or because our government, they are not taking care for us and we decided to take care on us.
Yeah. I mean, we're always a group that's just going to get stuff done, right? We don't typically tend to wait around for somebody to say, yes, it's okay. A lot of us are boundary pushers and are just going to do what we're going to do. So yeah, I don't know if people there are people obviously who are looking for influencer status, and that's what their whole thing is to do, and they want to get away from bedside, and that's just what they're looking for, versus people who are, I want to help people and I want to heal the nursing community as a whole. And I just happen to now have a little bit of people following me and people supporting me and wanting to see what I'm going to say next. So, you know, I think I kind of fall back into that second category where I'm not looking for fame. I highly doubt there's going to be fame. But if there's support,
I agree.
If there's support that comes from it, if I can help one person, that's the whole point, is just to help others, because really I'm going to need nurses to look after me. So probably should invest in those coming out now and in the next 10, 20 years, because those are going to be minors.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And this is one of the things also we need to consider, even if we don't want to go back for school to teach and learn the new generation, but to have that contribution to help them, either by, like what you do by books, writing books, do a feature podcast, or do a workshop. Try to give the community, not everything's even need to be monetized. I try to find something for like volunteering for coaching, mentoring for the new generation. This is because this is your investment for your future. When you become a senior, you need someone to take for you. And when you are shouting on them, they take care for you and they can understand why you are shouting.
Exactly.
What piece of advice you want to give it for the new generation? One piece of advice.
If you don't love it, get out. If you're not in love with what you're doing, yes, you may be in the wrong specialty, but if you don't love it, you got to get out. It's going to kill you. And then if you do get out, but you have your nursing degree, you can do anything. Like, you can do absolutely anything. There are so many avenues, you know,
Let
all
them
sorts.
connect with me. I will tell them what they can do.
Anas knows. Anas has gone, you've already gone like 6 different directions. So yeah, like there's just so much to do.
Yeah, still, this is one of the things. All the medical professional and clinical professional, they don't understand, or they don't value the skill set they have and how it's required in different industry. Still, they can utilize it, and they will not start something in you and do something in you. So, how you would like to finish our episode today or tonight?
I don't know.
Tell me.
Tell you. Well, if there was one specialty that you had a question about, or that you wanted to learn more about, what specialty would you want to learn about?
I am the host. Yeah.
I'm asking you. I've turned it around.
Because it's a hard question. I don't know. I believe every time my interest and my maturity, it's evolved. So sometimes I feel I am into something. Later on, I discover, no, it's not my area. Yeah, I'm happy I get on that experience. Now I need to find another experience. And that not because I failed. Sometimes, I did a failure. But sometimes I take this as a lesson and open more horizon for me. Right now, I believe with the storytelling, something I need to get on it. This is one of the things I believe I need to improve it and enhance it, because the value for this, even if you don't want to write a book, it is good to find a way to communicate and to see the enjoy in the discussion with other, and to know every single information or piece of information. It's have a huge story behind it, and we learn it. Even in the science, even in the religion, even there is a lot of story there. Sometimes we do not get that story, and sometimes some of those information or knowledge or experience or science doesn't make any sense. But when you hear the whole story, you feel it. So now, currently, if the short answer, storytelling skills.
Again, and it doesn't have to be a book. It's just 1 or 2 lines. That's all you have to start with.
Yeah.
That's it.
Jen, you are very smart. I'm happy having you, and thank you for your time. And I will share your information down here. Till now, I'm doing editing on the videos, so I don't know how to do it, but I will make it.
It's
I'll find a
usually
way.
it's usually show notes, right? So typically people at the end will go, "Hey, how can people get a hold of you?" And it's like, "Hey, well, you can find me at ER Nurse Jen on TikTok and Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn at Jennifer Johnson, BSCNRN. It's excessive, I know, but there's just a lot of Jen Johnsons. My website is
Yeah, I
www.rx
noticed
for growth.
Jennifer is very common name here in Canada.
Jennifer and Johnson. So like Johnson also is like Smith. It's
Ah,
it's a very common name, and there's so many. Like even in Ontario, there's like 4 or 5 Jennifer Johnsons that are registered nurses. So when I renew my license, I have to like be sure that I'm picking the right one.
I will put your information there and down. So please connect with Jennifer. Jennifer is a good leader in Ontario. I learned from her a lot. And since I connect with her, she is very supportive and we have a lot of things working together. Some of them still immature ideas, some of them mature, and hopefully we'll share those in the future. Also, our friend Corny, she is part of this group. Jennifer, every time I consider her my partner in the crime because she is in anything. She is in.
Again, I just go along with it because who am I to turn down an opportunity? Again, probably boundaries that I need to be setting.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
why not?
Why not?
Go
Why
for
not?
it.
We will have it. Now I realize why not we didn't make it in person, me and you. Why make it virtually? Maybe next time.
Night shifts, and I thought you were in Toronto. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Jennifer.
No
Have a
problem.
good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
If this episode sparked something in you, here's how you can keep our mission alive. Subscribe to Uncharted Narratives Surdiyat. Leave us a 5-star review. It helps more amazing people discover our stories. Share an episode that moved you with a colleague or friend. Connect with me on LinkedIn and join our healthcare innovation community. Together, we're not just telling stories. Until next time, stay curious, stay passionate, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in healthcare. See you in the next episode of Uncharted Narratives Surdiyat.